We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
Welcome back to Liberty Nation Radio. We're very fortunate to be joined by Liberty Nation's chief political correspondent, Mr. Graham J. Noble, who has been following the Trump indictment cases like a dog with a bone, I might say, Graham. You've really been on top of pretty much everything that's happened, both with the Trump indictments and the investigations into the Bidens, which we will talk about later in the show. But first, could you give me your political impression of the latest charges by Jack Smith against former President Donald Trump?
Well, Mark, and happy to be here, and you'll have to excuse my red face here in South Mississippi. It's been in the mid to upper 90s every day for about 2 weeks now. That's
because so many people voted for Donald Trump, apparently.
It's brutally hot outside, and it is the fault of MAGA Republicans that it is so hot outside, apparently, according to Hillary Clinton. Anyway.
According to Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, but well, of course, they can't. I'd say the Democrats. Of course, when we say Democrats, we can't lump Jack Smith into that group. But the Democrats were never going to let January 6th go. They were just never going to let it go. And so now, Jack Smith was originally appointed as a special counsel to look into the whole alleged mishandling of classified documents by the former president. And then he's now, looking at January 6th as well. And they've come up with yet another indictment. And the first thing is, January 6th, 2021. I mean, we are more than 2 years beyond that. But all of a sudden, right when and a spokesperson for Mr. Trump's campaign said this as well. Here we are, more than 2 years later, and we're just entering the presidential primary season. And also, we've got the Hunter Biden scandal, and I should say the Joe Biden scandal, which is getting bigger by the day. And then all of a sudden, they indict Donald Trump yet again. And I think you can't help but be a little suspicious about that. And, when you look at the indictment itself, I mean, I must admit, I have yet to read the entire thing, but what I've read of it, this one is very kind of emotional. It's very, it's more, it's much more about style than substance. And the way they're accusing Mr. Trump of, there's one part in it when it says, something like conspired, collaborated, colluded. It's like they just copied the thesaurus. Every possible word for conspiracy they put in there. So I think it's just all a bit over the top, really, by a long way.
Well, I'd pick you up on two things, or follow up on two things you said there. One was about the emotive language, and I think it was Jonathan Turley pointed this out. He made a very astute point on that and I felt it too, actually. I just couldn't articulate it as well as Mr. Turley. When watching Jack Smith in front of the reporters unveiling the alleged crimes here, he really did sound like he was going for incitement. It sounded like Donald Trump was guilty of incitement, and we're gonna bring down this inciting guy for inciting and all this inciting, and then mentions charges that have nothing to do with incitement. And it seemed that he was personally invested in, overly emotionally invested in making the case here. Is hardly the dispassionate system of justice that I hope we would all be subject to. And the other point there was about the timing, and I've got a little timescale, working on an article about the timescale things here. Lisa K. Donner, Liberty Nation's editor-in-chief, will have released this article. By the time this publishes, will have released this article regarding the timeline. But if I could just step on her toes briefly and perhaps give a glimpse into what she's going to be talking about. On June 7th, the FBI released that 1023 form that alleged there was a bribery thing with Hunter and Joe, $10 million bribe from Burisma. The day after, January 8th, Jack Smith indicts Trump for the Mar-a-Lago documents. Go forward a month. you've got July 26th. Hunter Biden's sweetheart deal gets tossed by the judge because she surmises, and I might have this slightly wrong, but she surmised that if she agreed to the deal, it would immunize Hunter Biden against all crimes that he may have committed that have not yet been discovered or are presently being investigated.
Yes.
And then the day after, again, just one day after, Smith drops more charges on Trump for the documents charges, plus adds a co-conspirator. And then July 31st, Devon Archer spills the beans in Congress about that Joe Biden was the brand that they were selling. Mm-hmm. One day later, again, you see the one day later thing happening here. Jack Smith brings 4 counts against Trump over the 2020 election. Is Jack Smith purposely trying to keep the Bidens off the front page?
Well, that's a like the $1 million question, Mark. I mean, I guess here's the thing. Is Jack Smith himself being motivated by politics? Who knows? Perhaps he is. I mean, usually, prosecutors generally are just very. Federal prosecutors can be very tenacious and can be very, they've got kind of tunnel vision, if you like,
That's why they get the job, right?
And so is Jack Smith himself making these decisions about the timing based on politics to deliberately try to protect the Bidens? I'm not sure that I could say that he is, but at the same time, you can't possibly look at this timing issue and say, oh, well, that's just, that's nothing more than coincidence. I mean, there's got to be something. If it's not Jack Smith himself, you've got to think that somebody, because of course, people like to say, well, special counsels, they're working independently. But at the end of the day, they are still, the special counsel's office is a branch of the Justice Department. Yeah. And you can't help but think, even though we have no proof of this, of course, you can't help but think that this timing is way too convenient for the Bidens, and that somebody, if it's not Jack Smith himself, there is somebody at the Justice Department who's got to be orchestrating that kind of timing, because those things, how many, I don't believe in coincidences anyway, not in politics. And, and even if I did, how many coincidences, one after the other, can you have before you start thinking, okay, something's going on?
I'm reminded of what Ian Fleming wrote, the James Bond author. It was, once is coincidence, twice is happenstance, third time is enemy action. Now, where do you think this is all going to go for Donald Trump? Because the indictments so far, they have rewarded him with a boost in the GOP primary polls. Now, that might end up being a detriment to him in the general election if he is indeed the final candidate. But it seems to be helping him in the primary polls, at least. What's your take?
I think it is. And I think that here's the thing. I honestly do not believe that Donald Trump is going to find himself behind bars for even a day at the when all is said and done. And I guess the reason why I'm saying that is because you can go after a former president, you can indict them, and throw them in front of a grand jury, and all of that. Okay, is about kind of it's about revenge. It was always about the Democrats getting revenge on Donald Trump for basically ending Hillary Clinton's chances of ever becoming president. And that's what all of this goes back to at the end of the day. But you can do all this stuff, and it's designed to humiliate Trump. It's designed to perhaps scare him out of politics, and all of that kind of stuff. But the moment they actually put him in prison, I think they risk. Let me just say that I think they risk igniting a situation in this country that they that they did not want to ignite, and that they will, that won't turn out well for them. That's all I'm going to say. I've got to choose my words carefully here, but I think actually putting Trump in prison would be the straw that breaks the camel's back. I think this is only going to help him, and I think actually if they did put him in prison, which I don't think they're insane enough to do that, but if they did that, then I think they would pretty much guarantee him becoming the next president of the United States, even from prison.
And of course, there's nothing to stop him actually being president whilst in prison if such a thing occurs. Now, we'll be back with Graham J. Noble after this short break, speaking Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. The saga continues. Don't go anywhere. We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
Don't get caught up in the media madness. Join our movement for free thinking and free speech at libertynation.com. Publishing news and analysis 24/7 with original articles by our team of authors who tell it like it is. Join us each week for online TV shows, The Uprising Podcast, and Liberty Nation Radio. We believe in free thinking and free speech. We are libertynation.com.